All right. So I'm going with a little bit of a different format, or a new format, if you will. It's not something I'm kind of used to doing, but hopefully it works out for 2025. We'll see. You know how I do. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I don't actually have a name for this segment yet, or for what this idea is. I just have like my proverbial three-pronged plan to see how this goes. But either which way, Happy New Year. I've actually, this is like my second or third one of these, I think. I don't know what order it's going to go out. So if I'm saying Happy New Year again for the third time, fifth time, whatever, just, it's because I care. It's because I care. Anywho, no big deal on that. Just whatever. We're just testing this out. We'll give it a few episodes. We'll see what we think, and we'll move from there. Anywho, feel free to take a seat and whatnot. And I want to spit some grease at you for a minute, if you will. Want to run something by you. And as you've seen in the title, I'm sure it has to do with Kino Casino and Darksydephil joining forces in 2025 to carve their niche out of the wrestling podcast game, and DSP thinking that, he can somehow get back into the good graces of Kino Casino while simultaneously trying to take some of their pay pigs and whales away. Ambitious, I'm sure. But we're going to go over the first 3 days when DSP went ahead and spoke about this. So I'm going to basically be talking about from January 1st to the 3rd. Anything that happens after that, then there'll have to be a part 2 of this. On top of that, there'll be an actual, Snort report that will follow this, that will go over some selected cuts, if you will, from those last couple of days. So you have that to look forward to. But this is just me giving you guys my initial thoughts on it as I saw it. So, how do we start? So we're talking about an idea that DSP has been trying to hype up since, I want to tell you since August of 2024, but truth be told, it could have been actually since September or October of 2024, of him and PPP having this podcast talking about wrestling, something that PPP watches and it's assumed that he's passionate about, and something DSP thinks that he can go ahead and use as a vehicle, as a vector, to weasel his way back into Kino Casino's good graces, but more importantly, the pockets of their pay pigs and whales. On top of that, giving DSP another bite at the apple, given the monumental fuck up that he ain't had in 2024. Let me explain with particulars. So, DSP's 2024 was pretty miserable, leading up to Kino Casino, and truth be told, even afterwards. I've said previously that I know that this Kino Casino arc didn't help him. It was short-term gains with long-term repercussions. There is so much nonsense from 2024 that I need to go over, because I need to do this. I need to go over that I can easily destroy this guy. Not that I don't already do it, but there's so much nonsense to go over that there's so much shit to pick apart. You know what I mean? Given how he ain't taking the knee to certain people, how he seems to be open or receptacle to certain people doing business with them later on down the line, going back on his quote-unquote morals and ethics that he's been trying to preach since like 2017 that all faltered and all that nonsense. It was ridiculous. And then the icing on the cake, I think, the icing on the cake was the Craig interview. The Craig interview opens up. I'm gonna do a whole nother one of these about that. So it is what it is. But the Craig interview was fantastic. It caps off the nonsense from the side scrollers, which really puts a real hindrance on DSP for the WWE Champions nonsense. And then the whole thing about an answer is an answer. It doesn't matter if it's honest or not. An answer is still an answer. You have to understand that that's what DSP's thought process is about everything. So who's to say what he's going to do as it pertains to PPP or Triple P, as he affectionately likes to call him, getting into this wrestling thing. But let's go ahead and stop all the fucking foreplay and shit. Let's go ahead and get right into the situation. DSP is looking to fall into the wrestling community, the wrestling podcast community, which is a niche community, but there is always room to grow. And he wants to stake his claim, if you will, or he wants to reclaim the kingdom that was usurped from him. Realistically, he gave it up. He wants to usurp his throne back and get back into the wrestling game, doing this with PPP. Now, PPP has a lot of things on the ball. The guy actually follows wrestling. He's charismatic. He understands the technicality of it. He understands the whole thought process which comes up with wrestling in the current day and age, the current product. DSP is still locked into fucking 2014 and maybe a little bit of 2020, and he's going to completely and utterly rely on PPP as he's relied on Kino Casino and as a whole to basically carry him through this. Now, DSP's portraying that, hey, I've been out of wrestling for 4 years. I haven't really been super invested in wrestling since 2014. I'm just gonna give my reactionary opinion on stuff, but PPP has the technical stuff, and I'm gonna learn how to get into this. It's going to fail miserably like that unless PPP turns this shit into an absolute fucking roast fest. Not just of the product, but of DSP himself. Everything DSP has to say as it pertains to the product that he knows of, or whatever his experience is with wrestling, that DSP knows of, PPP has to attack all of that and turn it into fucking comedy gold. He has to ridicule DSP, and DSP has to take it. Unless he has a retort that shows that he's somewhat competent. But I'm jumping ahead a little bit. What is this really all about? And how are they even going to start this podcast off? January 6th, WWE Monday Night Raw will be premiering on Netflix. Okay, Monday, January 6th. According to DSP, him and PPP will be having their wrestling podcast that they don't have a name for either, so you can't criticize me too much. will be debuting on the 7th. Now, this is the 7th is actually kind of interesting, but really more the time slot. Instead of us getting the Bottom Bitch podcast, the daily therapy session, the level 1 podcast, if you will, excuse me, we'll be getting this wrestling podcast show. Now, initially, on the 1st and the 2nd, DSP really didn't know how it was going to be formatted. They didn't know where they were going to do it. They didn't know how the money was going to get cut up. None of those things. On the 3rd, he clarified a bit more. So the podcast itself will be dual streamed. He said co-streamed, which made me think initially that, okay, PPP is going to fire up the Kino Casino stream, and DSP will do it on YouTube. Because DSP didn't know, are they going to do it on Kick? Are they going to do it on YouTube? Both, whatever. That's what I initially thought. DSP has clarified that by saying that what's actually going to happen is DSP is going to run everything. DSP has become the new Andy Worski, so to speak. So we can call him the Gouty Worski, if you will. And DSP will be running everything through OBS and Discord, as far as I remember. And PPP is basically the draw. He's the entertainment. He's the top biller, and DSP is bottom bitch mid card at best. DSP will be co-streaming this on his He'll be streaming this on his Kick channel, which he needs it to, because remember, he needs all that viewership so he can finally get into Kick's partnership. And he's going to do it on DSP Gaming. I'm sorry, no, he's not. We're not going to put it on that dead-ass channel. We're going to put it on the other dead-ass channel, DSP Reacts. That's where Kino Casino, where the wrestling podcast is going to go. Because he doesn't want to take away from all of that wonderful, meaningful, thoughtful, curated content that's on DSP Gaming. Of course not. Why would we ever do that? So he's going to dual stream. He's going to dual stream the podcast over there. Be about 2 hours or the length of whatever the fucking Bottom Bitch podcast is anyway, which is, it's slow. I've told you this for the last couple years, that shit's going to progressively get longer, and that's what it's going to do. And that's what's going to happen. Depending on how the first couple of shows go, will depend on whether it continues this. Apparently it's going to be a Tuesday morning type reaction. Whether they're going to do SmackDown, whether they're going to do NXT, that'll remain to be seen. DSP has to get Netflix to actually get all of this rolling, and so on and so forth. Now, a couple of things. One, DSP is already advertising this as, I've been out of the wrestling game a long time, I don't know what's really going on. You know, PPP is going to have to guide me through it. PPP is the draw anyway. He's going to be the one that's going to have the breakdowns. He's going to have all the charismatic shit, and he's going to bounce off of whatever dumb shit DSP has. Now, because DSP is a piece of shit, because DSP is scared to be shown up or be shown to be ignorant, even though I've been told the last couple of streams where they were setting up a boom mic and the retardation there was off the charts and all the other silly shit that's been happening as of late, I would have begged to differ if I had seen it in its completion. But I think what happens is DSP has probably, since he's gotten the confirmation from PPP, he's been trying to catch up on the product, speed running it basically, pay to winning it, if you will, just like he's doing with his whole streaming setup. If you ask me, I'm getting ready to derail for a minute, but I'll try to bring it right back. DSP's whole streaming setup, gaming, streaming, whatever the fuck, all this buying, peripherals that he doesn't need, all this shit about trying to get into mods, do all this extra shit that he could have done, a decade ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, is all pay to win. That's literally what DSP is doing. He is trying to play catch up in the most desperate way possible and trying to pay to win it all. And in his mindset of doing this, he's going to try to take back everything that he had. The wrestling podcast with John, trying to probably I should do a top 10 predictions of 2025, but I don't know if I'm going to do it. I should though. Anyway, or at least my predictions for 2025. It doesn't have to be a top 10. Anyway, but then again, I actually do have some ideas for top 10s for the year, but I'll keep that to myself for now. I think DSP is he's just trying to pay to win for everything. And he's going to try to get back his former glory from the old days. From 2013, 2013, 2014, 2015. But that's long-term thinking. We'll talk about that later. As it pertains to this wrestling podcast, though, I think he's going to come in stupid, as he always does, because he is stupid. But I think he's going to try to surprise PPP and the audience with some of his knowledge, or know-how about the business or about the product, as it periodically goes along, depending on how long it goes along. And he thinks this will be a way of earning the respect of the audience and PPP himself, so PPP can look at him as an equal. Because as you know, he's not looked at as an equal. He is by far the weakest link. You saw that when PPP and Andy and DSP were playing that one game where they chained together, and DSP was purposely sandbagging and making them do all the work. This will be no different. But I think DSP is going to try to flex and try to get and try to have his moments to try to earn PPP and the audience's respect by proxy, hopefully pulling them over so he can pull money out of these people and get more support from PPP and the audience as time goes on. Now, there's a lot of potential benefits for DSP, but there's a lot of drawbacks too. It's a double-edged sword. For PPP, there's a way more upside than not. Let me explain. So Kino Casino is going through their problems. They have the supposed pedophile shielding over there. There are a couple of videos coming out that make strong allegations against Andy Worski and CP, as well as some other shit. There's a lot of stuff going on. But Kino Casino has to keep going because they still have a steady audience. They still pull decent numbers, and they got decent people that are willing, I want to say decent because it's hard to say what's in that audience. But there's a lot of people who are still willing to give them money. There's no reason to shut the shit down. And at this point, it doesn't look good for PPP to replace Andy just yet. Instead, it's best if they both still do the show together, Kino Casino, and then they still try to do separate pursuits. PPP with his wrestling thing, Andy with his gaming shit. Now, for PPP, there's a lot of upside depending on how he does this. One, he gets his own built-in personal punch bag in Darksydephil. If Darksydephil sits there and takes the hits, that only benefits PPP from a content farming standpoint, that he can take over there to Kino Casino, or he can take it over to his own personal channel and do shit over there. If DSP fights back, then he can build some decent back and forth or banter, and he can basically try to, I don't want to call it grooming, he can prepare DSP for something else later on, which will only be used to farm content. On top of that, as it pertains to the niche community, which is the wrestling podcast / wrestling community as a whole, there's a whole lot of upside over there, man. There's a whole lot of chances to make a name for yourself if you can put out an entertaining product. PPP is probably not thinking about that. I'm sure he's probably just doing this for his own self-indulgence, but he could probably make something out of this if it works. If he can get the right type of PR, if they can get the right type of buzz on whatever platform respectfully. Honestly, I don't think Kick is the actual platform. They should actually do it on YouTube and Twitch, but semantics. For DSP, so for PPP, this is literally just the farm content and fucking literally just basically burn the shit out of DSP on a weekly basis. And DSP will smile at him and say thank you and take another. Because DSP is scared to lose him. DSP is scared to lose Kino Casino as a whole because he has no allies, has no friends, he has nobody that he can turn to that he can rely on. Back to DSP. Because of how this whole situation is structured, and PPP is willing to give up money, at least on the streaming angle, to do all of this, which means PPP could try to go for, I mean, I guess he could try to go for sponsorships or whatever, because it's all on DSP's side and not Kino's side. But DSP's reputation is so shit. I don't think PPP is really taking into notice that DSP can't get sponsorships. At least not good ones or profitable ones. But it doesn't matter, you gotta start somewhere. As it pertains to DSP, outside of the fact that he has to run OBS, he has to run Discord, he has to make sure everything looks good and sounds good. And from what I'm hearing, that new mic situation ain't working out. It sounded fine before the boom mic popped up, or the new $100 boom mic popped up. Now everything sounds like shit. Like the way my audio sounds. Womp womp, just consistently just taking steps back. DSP has to do all the work basically, but he does get the profits. Whoever it is that contributes to him on YouTube, let's go. With, we need subs, we need memberships, we need tips, we need this, that, and the third. And then he gets all of the exposure on Kick. So for DSP, there's a lot of upside. But I think PPP was smart in making him run everything. For one, PPP can't run OBS on his own, at least not competently. At least so they say. And that way PPP can just come in and just be the talent. All he has to do is focus on the product, focus on the jokes, focus on the breakdowns, clown the fuck out of DSP. Hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours he's out. End of story. And DSP can have the money because it's chump change anyway. And truth be told, most of the Kino Casino supporters will probably show up to watch it, but not all of them are going to show up to give money. Not everybody's going to be like, what's that guy's name that, some detractors were fucking giving him room for, Iron Chef Sakai or whatever. I heard he ran back too, so just go to show, a dent's always a dent. Anyway, not all those guys are going to give DSP and PPP money during this fucking podcast, knowing that none of that money is going to go to PPP or Kino Casino's coffers. They'll show up to support, they'll watch it, they may throw a couple bucks at it. But I'll be surprised if you see any real money come in. Like, you know what I'm saying? If that show pulls $1,000, I'll be surprised. I'll be really, really surprised. Now, most people would probably say, they probably won't see 500. Let's give it room to grow. So I'd be surprised if DSP and PPP make $1,000 on this, being that PPP is not actually getting any of the money. But we'll see. And will those donations during those streams, will that be going to DSP's stream goals? So on and so forth, because there seems to be some type of strong codependency on hitting those goals. So DSP tries to tap in every 10 days or whatever. Or shit, if they double the goals up, actually, it's not even every 10 days, it could be every 5. So essentially, 1 day a week, if not 2 days a week, DSP is definitely planning for DoorDash, and definitely being on the dent's dime. So make that what you will. I'll be interested. I'll definitely be following this. I'll definitely be seeing how it plays out and where it goes. I don't know what the longevity of something like this is. I feel like PPP is going to get bored really, really fast having to carry DSP, and on top of the fact that DSP won't banter back with him because DSP doesn't want to do anything to make him upset or to alienate himself from PPP and in his audience, the pay pigs, more importantly. So I don't know how long PPP is going to want to do this shit. We'll have to wait and see. On top of that, DSP's talked about, I had a successful podcast, but I couldn't. But, in 2014, when I moved out to Washington State from Connecticut, I was hoping to continue it, and I couldn't do it because of reasons. Didn't bring up John's name this time, but because of reasons. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, why couldn't he just do it on his own? He already had a baked-in audience for it. Why couldn't he just continue it on his own? Because DSP can't do shit on his own. And that's one of the things you're definitely going to see in 2025, because we've seen a lot of it for years, but I think going into 2025, you're going to see that more than anything. DSP is not going to want to do a damn thing by himself. By having people in the audience do the work for him, the heavy lifting, it shows that people care. It shows that there are people invested in him. It shows that he's not a loser, he's not a fluke, he's not all the things that people like myself accusing him of being, because why would these people spend their time and money helping him? And in some ways, you could also say, oh, well, this is DSP saying, this is DSP proving that his dents aren't dents because they're not, they don't have to be there. They don't have to put in all this extra time and effort. What DSP is not thinking, because he doesn't give a shit, is it really is a compromised, it's not a community. It's a compromised business with incompetency from top to bottom. These people are not fans. These people are not viewers. These people are workers. These people are serfs with no real payout. Everything DSP does, everything DSP quote unquote gives them, is because they already owe him for everything that he's already done. And he's just asking for his just desserts. He's just asking for a little bit of help with these playthroughs. He's just asking for a little bit of help with the editing. He's just asking for a little bit of help with OBS. He's just asking for a little bit of help financially, so he can keep doing this as a business and as a livelihood. It's just a little bit of this, it's just a little bit of that, it's just a little bit of this. And some people were dumb enough to fall for it. There's not going to be too many people stupid enough to keep falling for it, meaning new people, new blood, if you will. But the people who are there are just going to continue to deal with it. Now, DSP has kind of fucked himself over, and I'll try to use this to close out. He kind of fucked up with that Krabby Patty. Well, he did. He fucked up with that Krabby Patty thing. Remember, this is when Kino Casino went on break back in like September. And DSP basically had the run of the hen house, and he fucked it up somehow. August and September, they set his ass up. No, yeah, it was August. They that whole month of August, for the most part, they set his ass up and left him with their whales and their pay pigs. And somehow, throughout September, he completely screwed that shit up, and even in October, truth be told. Now he has to reconvince Kino Casino's audience, to reinvest in him, and that he's not going to fuck it up this time. And one of the ways you could kind of see him trying to do that is when he's doing these DSP tries-its, he's willing to drive out there and go and get it, which is weird because he couldn't do it before, but now he seems more willing to do so. Now he seems more willing to take these extra steps that he found all kinds of reasons to not do. How he didn't have the time to allocate that stuff. Now he seems to find time to do so. And I think it's because after that Kino Casino money started to dry up and he had to go back to the old ways, he got scared. And he's realizing, okay, I got to speed run buying all this bullshit, my pay to win theory, and all of this nonsense, and I need to get Triple P committed to this project so I can try to get back into his good graces, because I'm sure the money was great. I'm sure there's somebody out there who has a breakdown of what the money was from August till December, and DSP needs that back, and he needs it back desperately. He needs it quickly, I think. Especially with tax time coming around, I'm sure all that stuff is going to be a write-off, which makes you think, why couldn't he have done that stuff years ago? But I'll talk about that in another video. In either case, this is an act of desperation, a massive one, but a huge gamble on DSP's part. If it doesn't work, PPP just goes back to what he's doing and, no harm, no foul. If this shit fails for DSP, then it just cascades back into the overall problems that we're already having. On top of that, if this shit does kind of work out, even in the short term, PPP catches the eye of one of these other hungry wolves in the wrestling community who's looking for a co-host or looking for someone to just occasionally come on and, spit that heat in a somewhat technical and a somewhat color type commentary type situation, but can joke it up and be funny, but also sell that shit, that opens up doors for PPP. So that's my initial thoughts on this situation. Like I said, I'll actually do a video actually going over those 3 days. If anything happens between, let's see, Phil is off on Saturday, so if anything happens on Sunday and Monday leading into the Tuesday supposed wrestling podcast, then I'll talk about that and I'll put that out as well, and then I can combine those parts into one big part, or I can split it. We'll see how it goes. But either which way, that's my thoughts on the situation. I appreciate your time as usual, and I'll catch you for the next one of these whenever that may be. Take care of yourselves, people.